Arsenal returned to winning ways in the Champions League with a comfortable win against Dinamo Zargreb to put them in a brilliant position. Now, while there was definitely some good performances, we're going to talk about Gabriel Martinelli, who I think finally showed some great confidence and some brilliant execution, which if he can continue will help Arsenal in the coming weeks. So let's get into it. Now, I know there's going to be some criticism of Arsenal's performance. I don't really understand why. We controlled the game throughout it quite easily, and in the end we deserved the 3-0 win that we got. Ultimately, we're not a team that ever really blows anyone away, and we're not a team that wants to score no matter what. We got that early goal and we could have that chance there, and Dinamo Zagreb literally created nothing, so it was a brilliant performance all round in my eyes. Now, in training there has been reports that we have been playing Brazilian music in the last week, and that seemed to have affected Martinelli because I do think he played like a demon in this game. One of the first things I want to mention is that when he actually played and had the ball in a 1v1, he was very confident in this game, which we just not have seen from him in a very long time. Now, he was picking the ball up from deep, which we have seen the concerns of him having a lot of times, but he was not worried about running really fast at the other team. He finally used his pace, I think, well in this game, and his dribbling was incredible. He was getting to the byline each time and pulling the ball back, which helped Arsenal create a lot of good chances. Now, of course, like we said, we saw this in the first goal. It was a brilliant cross by Martinelli to Havertz, and Havertz brings it down. But this is what we want from Martinelli, this one-on-one devastating power, and I'm not going to lie, we didn't really get that on the other side from Sterling, so at least we had one confident player playing. Now, this wasn't the only time he did this, and in this game, he actually tried 9 dribbles and was 4 successful, which was the most in the game, which comparing to his last game, he made 0 out of 3 against Villa. Okay, he was on the right side in that game, and on the left side against Man United in 120 minutes, he only made 3 out of 6. So the fact he actually tried 9 not only showed that we got the ball into space for him, but there's also levels of it just being him being confident and actually going at players instead of passing it back, which I think is a big improvement. Now, in this game, I also think some of the tactics really worked in his benefit. Arsenal really did, for some reason, actually prioritise the central areas. Now, obviously, Sky Sports have spoke about it, us being 19th and everything, and we spoke about it in one of our recent videos, but it's mostly just a real Arteta thing where he really likes dominating the wide stretches so you can recover easily, and he just likes that sort of way of creating chances so they can cross the ball into big players. And we did cross the ball in a lot in this game, but especially in that first half, Arsenal had a lot of players in them central areas. Martinelli would actually come in that sort of left half space with Declan Rice and Havertz, and they were able to run basically anywhere they wanted, while Sterling and Odegaard would come inside as well if needed. Now, what this did actually is allow Arsenal to have an overlapping situation. We've mentioned that Arsenal would definitely benefit from an overlapping left back just to allow Martinelli to more naturally come into the central areas and not have to keep rotating with the left half channel, and this was the perfect assumption of that. Zinchenko did that role, I think, really well in left back and actually overlapped in many ways. This amount of space he was given was because of the central areas being so clogged up. That actually allowed us both to have Rice and Martinelli there rather than one having to always be on that wide stretch, which definitely helped. Now, I think Arteta's idea of this left half channel is to have sort of fluid motions with all 3 of the players around us sort of always moving around. I do think that kind of worked in this game, but I actually think it sort of worked everyone kind of sticking to their role. A lot of the time you would see that Arsenal, even when they tried to build up on that right side, Zinchenko would automatically go and try and overlap to create that space or even be open if needed. This allowed Martinelli to be able to run onto the ball. He had a shot in the first half where he came into that central area and picked up the loose ball and didn't have a great shot, but it is more important to get him having more shots, and we were definitely more impactful from the central areas because he could come in and get them second balls, while Zinchenko is the one that is being out wide where we don't really want Martinelli anyway. Not only did this help when Arsenal had the ball, but more importantly, I think that this helped when Arsenal could counter Zagreb. When they came up and had a few players trying to actually press Arsenal, Martinelli was in more of a central area because Zinchenko was covering that sort of wide stretch in the defensive area. Now, this is something we specifically said the other day, where if Arsenal are on the counter attack, in order to be more successful, we just need our players to come inwards and be more centrally. Them being so stretched out wide sometimes makes us slow the play down. It's hard to get the ball, the gaps are too big, and in the end our players aren't good enough to win their one-on-ones consistently, where it doesn't really actually affect us on the counter. Now, this was really good because it got Martinelli into the central areas where he could take players on and use his pace to run in behind. He's the quickest player in the front line, and it is something that we have not been using well enough, him included to be fair, in order to be a great transitional threat for Arsenal. Now, there's obviously still issues. I think the big one in the first half is where he went through and he got tackled, and he does so well, but when he gets into the final final third, he still is a little bit tentative on what to do and just kind of panics. And it is something we've trying to develop for all these years, and I do think his dribbling style does make that hard, but at least him getting in more central areas I do think will help in the future, so it is definitely a good positive there. Now the thing is, Arsenal are genuinely just a cross-heavy team. Arteta really prioritises wing play, and we have tall and a physical squad, so he's obviously going to prefer people to get into the box for the crosses. Now in this game I thought we made a real big inclusion for everyone to consistently try and get into the box, which definitely helped. There was a little bit more bravery in there. Also, I just felt like the deliveries were actually better. Now there was a few that were quite not that, but ultimately I think Arsenal could have scored 5 goals from different crosses. We were really good in that metric. Now one of the most successful things about this is usually when you have Bukayo Saka in, he is so good with both of his feet realistically, but especially that left foot. He can cross with an outswinger or an in-swinger in pretty much anywhere on the pitch. Now I think the idea for Arsenal is to do this on both sides, but Martinelli has only really been good at getting in the box over the last couple of years. He's not really an overall good crosser, and we're seeing it in recent games where he made 0 out of 9 against Man United. However, when your dribbling can be even more effective is when you can go inwards or outwards. I do worry with Martinelli sometimes that he always tries to go to the byline in many aspects, and it becomes quite predictable. This is one of the issues I have him on the transition. However, the moment that everyone is talking about from this game is when he actually came inside, and this is just a generic thing that we have done loads. Him and Zinchenko work the ball, Zinchenko passes it to him on the wide stretch, which we have said he has struggled at before, and Zinchenko makes that run into the half channel for him to open that space behind him, very much like we are still on the right side all this time. Now Gabriel's there, he could do the easy pass and he has done that before, but finally Martinelli used the fact that he has got a pace advantage over a lot of the players around him to quickly run into that channel, and in this position he could do anything he wants, but he needs to cross it to the back post. That is what we've been learned to, and as you can see there's already Waneri, Odegaard, Partey, Havertz and Rice all getting in positions to try and even be in a position to head the ball or get the second ball if it comes to them. And finally, we have seen this a few times by Martinelli, but he can do a brilliant in-swinging ball to the team where literally Havertz can't miss. It's a free header, the goalkeeper easily misses it. If Martinelli is able to add this into his game a lot more effectively and be able to do this a lot more, this will just make him 100 times better within the team, because he won't be predictable and you won't know where he's going to go, and with this space that is easier to get than the space in behind, this is where we're going to need him to produce the goods, and this cross is brilliant, right on the money where we needed it, almost Saka-esque. And without Saka we have really missed a lot of players having good deliveries. I've spoken about what I think about Odegaard's crossing over the last couple of weeks, but it's not just only him. A lot of the wingers have also been struggling and haven't been good enough. Now lucky for Arsenal, our dynamics are almost the same now. When we saw Sterling come off, Waneri finally came back from injury, which is a massive boost, and even with minimal space and Odegaard still occupying that half space, which we have asked him to move multiple times, you can see the brilliant delivery that Waneri can do into the back post where Rice should score, so we can get them dynamics on both sides, and as you see Martinelli is in the box in them as well, so I do think that is very important. And something else to note actually as well is when Trossard came on, he did technically play up front, he came on for Havertz, but him and Martinelli kind of acted like dual left wingers. Not only did they kind of occupy the same space, they actually just 2v1'd the Dinamo Zargreb guy. Now it is late on, the game's already over, so maybe it was their fault of that. Even though Trossard would move around everywhere, there was many times where he would go into that channel because he's prepared for that Gabriel pass that he has learned himself, which is eventually how the third goal came. I think if these guys can work off a bit more better, then that could be a good solution right now to be as a backup striker for Trossard being up there. But ultimately Martinelli needs to take more players on and be more confident and make more crosses in swing and out swing, which he did brilliantly in this game. And the stats proved it as well. He made 18 out of his 22 passes, which is absolutely fine, but he made 2 chances created, 4 out of 9 successful dribbles, 2 out of 4 accurate crosses, and only ended up having that 1 shot from distance, so actually was more of a creator in this game, which I don't really have an issue with. He still did his normal recoveries, defensive actions and tackles really well, but he got into more duels. He had 6 out of 14 ground duels won and only got on 1 area, which you expect, but it was quite interesting for Martinelli. It's a very different game you see him usually in, not one that's just trying to get poachers finishes, one that was actually willing to create from deep and be confident at running, which is real improvement. Maybe that music really did wonders for him in training. Now this is really good. Of course we've got Man City coming up in just a few weeks, we've got Wolves at the weekend, we just got to take it game by game, and these players need to start performing, but I think we had some good performances out there, and overall we needed a clean victory to give us some great hopes in the Champions League, so that's all that mattered. Thank you guys for watching, let me know what you think in the comments, and if not, I'll see you in the next one.